converted man here. Okay, so I found a video to respond to, I guess. This is a Christian to atheist to Christian again by the 10-minute Bible hour. It's 15 minutes and 28 seconds long. So it's a little bit more than 10 minutes, but that's okay. I have a series called 1 Minute Skeptic that's often more than 1 minute because it's just a name, so it's not really. Anyways, so like many theists, apologists, Christians that we've encountered, if you've been with me for a while on this channel, or if you've done this sort of stuff yourself, you'll notice some patterns come up. You'll notice some trends. And one of those trends is that Christians will sometimes say that they were an atheist or that they became an atheist or things like this. And it's hard not to want to say, well, but were you really an atheist? And not to no true Scotsman them, but honestly, what do you mean by atheist? Because it was like, well, I didn't believe in God. Well, how long did that last? Like, what do you mean by that? Like, how long did you really not believe it? Like, how deep was that? And why? And not just why you didn't believe in God, but also, like, what did you do with that? Like, what was your methodology there? And we don't usually get the answers to those sort of critical questions. Usually what we get is I just like lost my faith or I didn't believe, and then and then I saw this or this event happened and then I believed again. And that's typically, but not always, but broadly speaking, what I've seen people do. So in this video, he's giving kind of a recount of his journey from faith to non-faith to faith again. And he starts by talking about his childhood religion and his understanding of the faith as a child. And then in the teenage years, drifting away from that. And his reasoning is what I'm going to be exploring here. So I'm going to play you some of his video, not all. I'm going to skip around a bit, but you can check out his original video. Hopefully the audio is loud enough for everyone to hear. We'll see.
I crashed against the rocks and the wheels did fall off. I mean, it's a terrible way to approach life. I mean, you miss out on learning and growth because you already know everything. And your quest is now to get everybody else on board with the things that 15-year-old you figured out. And so I would like to think that there were likable things about me. And I certainly had friends, patient friends, but I would also have to admit that there were some things about that build of my faith that really were very problematic. Went through a difficult time in a church setting. I used to kind of think this was everybody else's fault. Eventually I came to see that I had a part in what went wrong there. And with no blame toward anybody, the whole thing just broke. The Bible didn't make sense anymore. The Christianity 101 answers that I had kept with me since I was 15 could no longer bear the weight of the questions I couldn't help but ask now. I'd heard new perspectives and ideas, and there's only so much you can block that stuff out. And then you endure a work crisis, relational crises. And well, I was, I guess, about 29. Here I am finding myself with a moving van driving away from my old job at this church where stuff got weird. And my beautiful young wife and my beautiful daughter, who's only a few weeks old, my first kid, is back there in the car seat. And here I am in a U-Haul and we're driving to nowhere. We have no plan. We have no job. I'm not going to go work at another church. I'm just lost. I started crying, like ugly crying, partly because I felt like this is the time I need to have things together for them back there, but also because I didn't want there to not be a God, but I really felt there was no God. I didn't want to not be a Christian. Of course I wanted to be a Christian. I don't want all the stuff that the Bible promises about the point of existence and where all of this is headed to be fake. I wanted that to be real.
Okay. So yeah, just wanting something to be real doesn't make it real. Wanting something to be true doesn't make it true. Hoping that something isn't false, wishes and desire does not make the thing true. I don't want there to, not be that, whatever. It doesn't make it so. It's like, well, I really wish I wasn't broke. I really wish I didn't have, that I had money right now. That'd be great, man. I just wish I had money. That doesn't make money magically appear in my bank account. So just wanting something to be true or not true doesn't make it so. Now he's describing a life change. He's describing himself as a younger man. 20. You're in your 20s. You're just trying to get it together. You're still trying to. What does it mean to be an adult? Really, it's like, well, you're an adult when you're 18. Well, are you though? Maybe we should delay that till 20 because you're still a teen, right? I don't know, but at any rate. He's young, he's married, he's leaving behind a job and a familiar place. He doesn't know where he's going, and he's having a crisis, a crisis of faith, existential crisis. Okay, I get that. I've been there, and so the faith that he had as a child doesn't work with the reality that he now encounters in real life. And it's interesting that he's talking about it's hard to block out all these other opinions and viewpoints and all this other stuff that it's like, well, why would you need to block out any of that? If what you think is true, if what you think is real, then other ideas aren't going to matter at all. They're not going to challenge that in one way, shape, or form. There isn't any going to be something that negates it unless the thing that I think is true isn't really true. So this is remarkably easy to demonstrate. So I'll just have one of my many props here, this little cute little plastic frog. So that's really there. It'd be really hard to believe that it's not there because we can see it. And you might say, well, it's a special effect or something like that. But I don't know how to do that sort of special effect. Otherwise, I wouldn't, I'd be doing something way cooler than just this. So yeah, it's a plastic thing, okay. So I don't want this to be there. I really just wish it wasn't there. That doesn't make it go away, right? And if somebody said, well, I want to be, I want to doubt that. I want to question you about that. They could, I suppose. But in the end, I still really have this plastic frog and no other opinion or viewpoint or argument or anything could ever say that, no, I don't actually have this because I actually do. And so it'd be interesting to hear those other viewpoints, but they're not going to bother me. They're not going to cause any sort of crisis in my belief because my belief isn't a belief, it's a fact. And this is my argument against faith, broadly speaking, is that faith is not fact. That's relatively simple to understand, but faith is less than fact. It's better to have fact than faith. No, that in my opinion, in my viewpoint, and the reason that it is better to have fact is because, well, it's true. You don't have to believe it's true. You don't have to hope it's true. You don't have to wish that it's true. You actually know that it's true. Now, many people have rebutted that by saying, well, but you have faith in something in your life. And that might be true, maybe at some level. You might have a relationship and you might have faith that your partner is not right now cheating on you. Well, but why do you have faith in that? There's a lot of reasons for that. There's the social contract. There's this trust that's been established. There's the presumption of innocence. There's a repeated pattern of them not cheating on you. There's no evidence that they are doing that. So the burden is not on showing that they're not cheating on you. The burden would be on showing that they are, because you have all this evidence, this somewhat maybe subjective evidence that they probably aren't. And that can be challenged. Absolutely. That can be challenged. But if somebody says, well, they're cheating on you, oh, really? I want some evidence of that. Of course I want evidence. I'm not just going to believe you. Well, I saw them kissing somebody else or whatever. Prove it. Show me the evidence. And that's why people hire private detectives and things like this, because they want the proof. They want to see the evidence. They don't want to just believe somebody. Because this is, you're talking about a relationship that you've established, you've put time into and energy into and money, all these things into, and so if that's going to crumble, I better have some darn good evidence for, this idea. And then I have a fact. I have the fact that they didn't cheat on me, which I believed, but now I know it's true. It's like there's no evidence that they did cheat on me, therefore they probably haven't cheated on me. Now, maybe they did, but I don't have evidence of that, so I'm going to go with my original belief that they haven't done that. But all of that's investigatable. See, all of that's something that I can discover and find to be true one way or the other. So, yeah, I suppose you could say that that's a faith at some level, but ultimately you can still discover what the fact is. So let's go back to the video here.
But for all the things that I would critique myself over, one thing that I can maybe say that I got right in all this time was honesty. I didn't lie to myself about faith. I've tried to make that a habit since that point. I don't think it's a good thing to lie to yourself about. And that meant that in that moment, I didn't have a faith anymore. And this little four-wheeled metaphorical vehicle, this build that my faith had been that I'd had around since 15, everything was taken apart, not just the wheels falling off, the panels are off, everything's off. And it's spread out on this metaphorical workbench with all the parts and pieces of what used to be a cohesive faith just shot. And even on that drive in my brain, I was trying to reassemble it and make sense of things, and I just couldn't. And I kept coming to the conclusion, it's fake. And this hurts deeply. For the next, I don't even know how long, period of weeks and months, whatever, I processed this out more. And I guess I got to a place where I thought I've got a lot in this. It would be worth my time to at least try to read the Bible again. Maybe it'll look different with all the parts taken apart and laying here on the table. And then maybe I'll understand things I didn't understand before. Maybe I just need to do that and owe it to Christianity or myself before I maybe feel the impulse to let my wife know where I'm at. So I started reading the thing again, and it was amazing how quickly, now that those presuppositions were taken apart, it was amazing how quickly this thing came back together.
Okay, so he had this presupposition of how the faith worked, how Christianity was meant to be as a child, as a young man. And then it fell apart. There was these crises. He had this for a while, some months perhaps of doubt. I don't know, he wants to call that period being an atheist and saying, not believing in God. I don't know. I can't read his mind. I don't know what happened to him in his head. So I'll have to grant that he's being honest here, because that's the social contract. To me, not believing in God is very different than just doubting or having, a crisis of faith. But whatever you want to call this period of time that he had, it wasn't very, even if it had been a long time, a year, I've heard people say that they were an atheist for a long period of time or whatever. But notice what he did. He went to read the Bible again with a different viewpoint than he had before. He did not do what I, as a skeptic, would want him to do, which is first, okay, you have all these doubts. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good thing to doubt. Maybe you're right, and that all this stuff that you believed in isn't true. Let's consider that for a while. The emotion part I understand and sympathize with, because when I deconverted, it did hurt, but I got over it. It took me a while to do so, but I did. But let that emotion part go and then be intellectual. Before I pick up that Bible again, what do I know about the Bible? Who wrote it? Do we know who wrote it? When was it written? Do we know that? Where was it located? What fragments were found, and where were they found? Who found them? How was it assembled into what we have today? What different translation techniques were used? What was the methodology for deciding what canon was? What's the history of this book that I'm going to be investing my time and energy on? Have I looked into any of that at all? And if not, why not? Why am I just picking it up and assuming that the version I'm holding is correct in any way, shape, or form without decent investigation on the history of it? Why do I think that it's true without looking into whether or not it is or isn't true? I shouldn't read anything more until I've done some darn research on it. And let me tell you, my personal subjective experience of dealing with apologists and of all walks of faith, but mostly Christianity, with the broad bell curve, okay, because there's always going to be exceptions. Certain exceptions exist on one side or the other of the bell curve, but the broad middle section has been the unexplored religion that people have zero idea about anything of the Bible, for example, or whatever the holy book is. They don't know where it came from, who wrote it, when it was written, where it was found, who discovered. They don't know anything about that. They assume that they might not even know about the different, like, well, you bring up different versions, like King James Bible versus New International Version versus American Version versus the Law Cat Bible. Which version is the best? And they don't even know that. Or they'll simply, if they're King James only, they'll just assert, of course it's the King James. That's the one that's true. And you go, why? How did King James decide this? Why is that? Well, because it is. They have zero investigation into any of the history of it, any of the facts, any archaeology, anything about the locations, nothing. They do not know a darn thing. That has been the majority of people. So he didn't do any of that. If he had, I think he would have brought it up in this video. I think he would have said that he had, but he didn't. So I've got to say that he didn't explore it. He picks it up and just starts reading again. But he does so now with a different idea than he started with. So he had one idea about how to look at it, and now for whatever reason, and he doesn't tell us what that reason is, but now he has a different idea, and he starts reading it with this different idea in mind. So it didn't make sense when I looked at it in this way, but now I'm going to look at it in this way, and it might make sense. But just because it makes sense that doesn't make it true. Just because I looked at it this way and I've said, that way doesn't make sense, that doesn't make that way false either. That's an appeal to ignorance and personal incredulity. Just because it doesn't make sense to you doesn't make it false. And the methodology behind this is absent. How did you decide that the way to look at this back then is not right and the way to look at it now is right? Just because it made sense to you? Well, now I can believe it, but I can't believe this version. Well, why not? Well, because it doesn't make sense. That's not good enough. That's not logical. That's not rational. That's not a methodology to use that works. Well, it just doesn't make sense to me. I guess it's not true. You know, if it makes sense to me, then it's true. No, not good enough. Okay, back to the video.
Very quickly, I could tell, oh, I had a false assumption here. My false assumption was that I'm the main character of the document, that humans are the point, but we're not. God is clearly the main character of the document. Whoa, that changes everything. It's not like that just clicked. I gotta run everything through this new set of lenses, this new matrix. How does that work? And then I read a little more. And I'm like, you know what? The plot of the Bible then can't be the improvement of people's behavior and the increased accuracy of people's thinking about God. It's got to be the story of God redeeming things that are broken and messed up people.
All right. Well, congratulations. You've just made a new denomination if it didn't already exist. That's all you've done is, you know, all these denominations that are out there of Christianity, Baptist, Lutheran, Pentecostal, Church of Christ, even the churches that say, well, we're non-denominational. No, there's always a denomination of some sort at the core, and even those that say, no, there really isn't. You go, well, what's it based? How is it? Or we based it on the Bible, but they still have their own idea of how to interpret the Bible. So all he has done is say that his interpretation of the Bible is better than the old way that he had to interpret the Bible. I know people that agree with his old way of interpreting the Bible. Okay, back to the video.
Full creation, everything. Whoa, that's a completely different religion. And what's insane is that in that moment, I was an atheist, and I think I'm still an atheist toward that fake version of God that I thought only cared about people and that was subservient to people. But I am not an atheist anymore to the idea of a God that made everything and is the first cause of everything and is the God behind the Bible itself. They're different deities. And if you play the game all the way out, it plays out in very different ways. In that moment, sitting there with everything taken apart metaphorically on the table, Christianity had broken for me, and I no longer believed that that religion worked. The funny
And maybe that's a good thing for it to break and to say it doesn't work. Perhaps. But this again is this version didn't work for me. But this version works for me. Well, again, that's just a new denomination. I don't like how, the Baptists are. They're just, the sermon is just too long and boring. But I do like how the Pentecostals are. They dance around and it's lively. Well, I got tired of that. But I don't want to go to Baptist. The Quakers, man, they just sit there and they're really quiet and then they just kind of vibrate. That seems kind of cool. I'll check that out. I'll be part of that group for a while. That's kind of boring. I didn't, I'm kind of, okay, well, yeah, you can do that. People do. But all you're doing is coffee in the background. All you're doing is changing from one to the other, and the methodology isn't there. It's just preference. I like vanilla. I like chocolate. Okay, and your taste may change. And there's no necessary underlying methodology there because it's completely of emotion and of the whim, and it's subjective. But this is something you're basing, hypothetically, your life upon. It should be way deeper than just whim. I like this church, but I don't like that one. Well, who cares if you like it or not? Is it true? Is it real? Is the way to view this in this way the correct way to view it? And if you don't have the methodology for figuring that out, maybe it's good that it's broken. Maybe that is why it's broken, is because you have not yet established a methodology for determining whether or not it's true in the first place. And that was me going back to the video and then remembering that I have to click on stuff for that to happen. So, yeah, that.
The thing is, I still no longer believe that that version of the religion works. There are problems and flaws, unsurprisingly, with my 15-year-old build, my 15-year-old prototype of a religion that purports to be a relationship and interaction between finite people and an infinite God. It's going to be more complicated than what I can come up with as a 15-year-old. This shouldn't surprise me. But the version of Christianity that is age-old and encapsulated in the biblical text and that resonates with reason in my brain, oh, I'm not rejecting that.
Well, like I said, you just decided on a different version just because it resonates better. Now, it's interesting that the one he came up with as a kid. Well, what? Did nobody educate him on how to view the religion deeper? Well, whose fault is that? Is it the fault of the God that made the religion, or is it humans' fault or something? Either way, well, it seems that the methodology was lacking. And this is my personal experience with church is you go to church, you hear the sermon, and that's that. And you go home. Then sometimes you go to church and you have Bible study, which is just reading one particular verse or out of the Bible and then talking about it. It's not really studying it. You're not learning, and you're just going, yeah, well, I read this. Let's talk about it. It's not the same sort of study, if anything else. You would think you would come to a conclusion that not only does everybody share, but is actually demonstrably demonstratable. If you study mathematics, you come to the conclusion that is correct. You can't come to it. If you do the formula correctly, then you come to the correct conclusion. Now, word problems are notoriously difficult in that the way that they word them sometimes itself is wrong. That the problem is incoherence. Like, well, what are they asking here? Because language is difficult. And so many people have problems with word problems. I have problems with math. And so I leave it alone, except for the logic gate parts. I'm all over that bit. So I take the bits of math I get, but my point is you can't get to the wrong thing if you use the right process and you know a little bit about how the numbers work, and everyone's going to agree on that. But if you and the same thing's true in science, where you go, okay, well, here's a hypothesis, and then let's test it, and then you test it, and you go, okay, well, here's how I tested it. You put that out there in the world, and people go, okay, well, I'm going to test it a different way, and they test it, and they go, oh, I got the same result, and so you have this convergence upon an idea, not a divergence. And what do we see in religion? We see different denominations. We see different people believing in a different way. Why? Well, it's not like science. There isn't an agreed upon one way, ultimate way of viewing the Bible or any other holy book, or any other religion out there. There are several ways because it's not necessarily objective. And if there is an objective way, then no one has yet discovered a methodology or assembled a methodology to get that convergence going. Theism is not about getting everyone to agree, although many apologists have attempted to do so. Now, going back in the day, conversation I had with Matt Slick, he thinks now, and I'm pretty sure you could probably still find it on his website. But if you want me to prove it, I'll go dig through it and find it. But you better throw money at me to do that. But at any rate, somewhere he said to me or wrote that he thinks he's got it right. That his way of looking at Christianity is the, with a capital T, way of doing it. And this guy in this video, which way do I point? There we go. He thinks that he's got it right. Well, why? Because it makes sense? That's not good enough. You don't have a methodology. Okay. Back to the video.
That to me makes a lot of sense. Maybe this is getting confusing in terms of language. Bottom line, I was raised around Christianity. I was very proud in that. I had a version of it that I built when I was 15. That went for a ways into adulthood. I refused to grow and it broke. It's not anybody else's fault. It's my own fault. But somehow, I guess I would say because of God, the thing got put back together and it looks very, very different. This, I don't know which build I'm on, like 75.2 now, because I keep taking it apart and putting it back together because now it's just fun to work on it all the time. But certainly at this point, I would say, yeah, I'm a Christian. And I'm really glad I didn't go out and announce that to everybody because I was still very much in process on this. And there are still all kinds of times, including moments where I've worked at church and moments where I've been making videos talking about this stuff with you, where I'm like, I don't know, if I'm to be totally truthful, I got all the parts spread out here on the workbench again right now. And it's going to take a few weeks because my processor isn't fast enough to just do this in an instant. But all of this taking apart and putting back together since has happened in the context of Christian faith. And I would like to think, being honest with myself, so I don't lie to myself to just believe something to make myself feel better. This makes for a weird, clumsy, clunky, uncomfortable version of Christianity, but it feels like I'm telling myself the truth. Maybe I'm not right about everything, but I'm not intentionally lying to myself. That's what I mean. And
well, honesty with yourself is good. It's a good start. But all I'm hearing is exploring this idea, as you said, within yourself. I do not hear any mention of research into the history of the Bible, the history of your own religion. I don't hear anything about study of the languages or listening to other Christians or other people from other faiths or listening to debates on, skepticism versus Christianity or atheism versus Christianity. Nothing of that nature. This is completely you working it out and taking it apart and going, let's see, how do I make sense of this new problem that someone has brought up in my comments section? I did this as an apologist when I was Infinite Hope. Oh, yeah, I did this all the time. I remember my last thing, I really made an atheist mad at me because they had spent a lot of time, I think, trying to explain something to me. And I don't exactly remember who it was or what it was, but I just have this kind of fragment of this memory that is like, they're like, I just explained this and you're going completely backwards on this, and it really pissed them off. And it wasn't soon after that I left that channel behind and examined my faith and found that it wasn't based on the facts that I thought it was. And that was it for me. And then I deleted the channel because I was mad, which I regret doing. You know what? Next up, I think I'll do a me versus me, where I find a video that I still have from Infinite Hope days, and I'll talk about whatever I said in that video, which may or may not be anything interesting. I don't know. But at any rate, you have these ideas, and rather than saying, well, maybe all of it's wrong, what you can do instead is say, well, this question came up. How am I now going to justify the belief in my own head? Well, instead of thinking about this, I'm going to switch that out with this and use this and da-da-da. Why? Well, wait a minute. What about questioning the idea? Instead of trying to justify the idea, say, okay, let's assume that this is wrong. I've spent this time and energy, yes. I have an emotional investment, yes. But what if it's all wrong? Whether the way I feel about it, who cares? Let's see whether or not it's true. And let's not rely on my own understanding. Let's see what others have to say. I love critical feedback I get from time to time on my videos, and sometimes in chat, pushing me to be better. You missed this. I can't believe you didn't talk about that fallacy. You could have brought this up. And this one guy, like, he had this an essay about an idea. I'm like, yeah, that's great. I wish I had said all that. I need you in my videos doing this, because it adds. When I'm wrong, I learn something that's exciting. So rather than try to justify my belief, I try to disassemble it more and say, well, okay, instead of saying, well, in order to keep believing, I have to add more beliefs. I want to subtract beliefs. I want to add only facts. Does that mean that sometimes you have to be skeptical of a whole lot of things? Oh, yeah. Is that hard? Sometimes. Is it easy? Sometimes. I joked, I was like, be skeptical, it's more fun, Well, not always. Maybe, of course, you might have a brain that is programmed or wired in such a way that the idea, you're willing to challenge it, you recognize that it's challengeable, but ultimately it's just there and that's it. And you maybe you've even tried to get rid of it, but you just can't. That might be the case for all I know. I don't know of anyone that's well, I know of someone that's kind of tried to do that, but I don't know to what extent, because I can't read minds, and ultimately I don't know how good of an idea it might be within your brain to try to disturb your brain so much. But as long as you're willing to, at some level, hypothetically challenge it as best as you can, maybe that's a good thing. Certainly, you can come to realize that the methodology is flawed. That maybe the idea that you have is true. That whatever it is, maybe it's God, maybe it's some other thing, but maybe that idea is true, and we're going to call it faith. We're going to say, yes, it's a faith. I recognize that. And that's all it is. And I'm not going to say that my way to do this now is correct, because my methodology I recognize is flawed. I recognize that just believing in something because I believe in it is flawed. It doesn't make it false. It doesn't make it true. It just makes me far more honest. This guy wants to be honest. That would be far more honest. His methodology, where it's all taken apart, well, that's honest, but I'm trying to caution him and you and myself in that we often will create excuses to patch up our belief rather than to let it go. Maybe there's a God out there, but maybe his version of it is not the real version. And he kind of is on that path. He said the version he had as a kid was wrong, and now this version makes more sense. But why does this version make more sense? How do you know that this version's the right version? In fact, how do you know that that God is the right God? How do you know what God is? Do you know what God is? What is it? What's at the core of it? And for some, that might be love, loving others. Okay, do you need God to do that? No. Okay, well, then that's God, loving others. And you don't need the name God necessarily. But maybe you like that word, and so that's the word. Okay, fine, whatever. But make that your focus. But that would be letting go of dogma and doctrine, and that stuff can be comforting to some. All right, back to the video.
And that's what I'm striving to do moving forward. And I wish I had listened when no doubt wise people sat me down somewhere along the way as a kid and were like, hey, you're doing great in terms of where you're at right now. You're asking the questions you can ask. You're thinking through what you can think through. This is going to get weird down the road, though. You're going to ask new questions later and more questions after that. And this really is a lifelong adventure that you're going to go through of exploring the final frontier, the depths of the human soul and eternity and God and life and death and people and everything that matters. You are about to embark on this, young man. So get ready for a crazy, interesting, fascinating ride. This will be the most interesting project of your life. I'm sure people told me that, but I was too proud to listen. I'm glad eventually I at least started to internalize some of that a little further down the road. That gets me to the whole thing about testimonies. Here I stand with faith, and anti-testimonies. Now I stand over here. The whole anti-testimony fad, I get it. Yeah, there's some of that impulse is no doubt motivated by cultural pressures. It used to be very easy to be a Christian. You scored a lot of points by doing that. Now it's a little bit harder, and you don't score a lot of points by being a Christian, except in some Christian circles. So I think there's more to be gained by identifying with what right now is the easier track, and that is the be skeptical of religious claims, particularly Christian claims, particularly evangelical Christian claims. But I think it's more complex than that as to why people make anti-testimonies right now. One reason I think it happens is because, well, the same reason anybody gives a testimony for anything is to say, here I stand. I am taking the flag of myself and I am planting it right here. Yep, I'm a Christian. This is how I got here. Now you know who you're dealing with. This is what I'm about. Well, I guess it's understandable that if somebody had that flag planted there and they really wanted to say, well, that's not who I am anymore, and I want people to know who they're dealing with, now I plant my flag over here. Okay, I think that's one point of testimonies. I think another point of testimonies, both testimonies traditionally and anti-testimonies, is that we want solidarity. We want to encourage other people who've gone through a similar process. That's why you tell a testimony in church. And I think that's why people tell anti-testimonies on the internet right now. Additionally, a third reason that we tell testimonies is to persuade. If I plant my flag over here and say, I think Christianity is true and there's life in it and there's a God behind it, what I'm implicitly or explicitly saying is, and I think this would be true for you as well, and I hope you'll think about it, and I'd like to have you join me in this. That's the one place where I feel like the anti-testimonies maybe aren't totally honest. They don't usually come out and say, follow me. But come on, it's a testimony. They want you to follow them.
I don't want you to follow me. At least not in terms of me. Although I want you to follow my channel because I'm egotistical and my brother's deciding to eat chips right now. See this? Throwing it at him. Okay. It's like, chips are noisy. You know I'm recording now. Anyways, where was I? Don't follow me, follow the logic. Follow reason and skepticism and science. Those are the things to follow. The argument, if it's valid, follow that to its conclusion. Ask yourself only, what are the facts and what truth do those facts bear out? Me? Forget about it. Doesn't matter. The argument is what matters. The person is irrelevant. The group is irrelevant. Only if it's valid and sound, if there's empirical evidence, repeatable tests, and or valid and sound logical argument, that's what to follow. Not a person, not a group, not an ideology, not a belief, not a religion, not a god, not a guru. No. Follow only and solely what can be demonstrably demonstrated to be fact. And you won't need faith. That's what I want you to follow. Do not tell me what I want people to do. That is mind reading. I only want people to learn and use logic. That's what I want. So why not ask me what I want instead of telling me? As far as reasons why people give testimonials or anti-testimonials, I just call them deconversion stories, but whatever you want to call them. It's not an anti-testimonial would be the opposite of a testimonial. If they're both testimonials, then they're testimonials. There's no such thing. The anti-testimonial would be to not give a testimonial. And I'm planting my flag here. Well, my flag is squarely on logic, reason, and science. So, that's it, I guess. But it's not my flag, it's everyone's flag, because everyone gets to use the same logic and the same science. It's not subjective, it's objective. There's maybe some disagreements on some of the points, and we can refine it. Great, and we should, and we try to. And how dare you, sir, tell me what I want people to do? No. I want you to follow the facts, not me. Although, yeah, follow me, as far as like on Twitter or YouTube, sure. But that's just because I want my numbers to grow and stop having negative numbers every single month. The numbers don't matter, though. I made a video that said that. What was I saying? Right. So, no to what he just said is what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm gonna quickly kill my brother as I play more video because he's eating chips. He's doing this just to annoy me. He's eating quietly. No, it doesn't count. Right, back to the video. Hey, seek the truth. If you would like to talk to me live, let's set up a time and day to do that. But right now, yeah, I can't. This guy in the chat, he wants to talk about something else, and I'm talking about this video. So back to the video.
It's not just, I feel disingenuous if I don't tell you this right now. It's not just, hey, I want other people who've experienced what I've experienced to feel solidarity. It's, look, I've laid the whole thing out. I just explained to you why Christianity makes no sense. In my deconstruction story, you'll now need to come with me over here to not faith, or I guess just be irrational. And so I'm not saying it's wrong for somebody to want to persuade you to what they think. I'm trying to persuade you. Are you kidding me? I didn't just tell you that story for my health. I told you that story because I want to plant a flag and say, this is who I am. This is how I got there. I want to tell you that story because I think there are a whole bunch of youth group kids like me who got raised around Christianity, and some of it was weird and some of it was good. And you're trying to untangle this whole thing in your brain as an adult too. So there's a solidarity aspect, but I'm also telling you this because I want you to do the eyes wide open faith thing with me. I want company. I want other people who are willing to take it all apart and put it all back together, and take it all apart and put it all back together, and not get weird and freaked out that other people might see it different, or that you're touching on something that's a little too sacred. It's just, if there's a God behind it, we should be able to think about it. So yes, I'm trying to persuade you to do that with me. I want to make videos where we do that together. I want to kick it around together. I don't reply to all the comments or even most of them, but I read a lot of them because I want to hear what you think. And I really do care what you think about it. I care about your process in this. So yeah.
Well, let's see if he responds to this that I'm doing right now. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? Challenge a skeptic. And in that, and what I mean by that is not to say, yes, we could do debate, but challenge your belief. Challenge what you believe with a skeptical mindset. And that's something I can maybe help with, because I'll ask critical questions like I've done in this particular review. I've brought up the problems that I see inherent in the system that you're speaking of. You don't have any methodology that I can tell in this particular video. You're not telling me why you believe this or that. You're just telling me that you do believe in this, that one makes sense to you and the other doesn't. Okay. But what's your methodology of deciding what one is true? Will he have a conversation with me live? If I can be awake at the right time. I don't know. But if my past is any example, probably not. Apologists and Christians tend to avoid me, maybe because I ask those critical questions. Sometimes they'll engage and then run away after one engagement because I ask tough questions. And sometimes they'll come back for more, but that's rare. I don't know what kind of person this guy is, but if what he's saying is true and he sees this video and he cares about these ideas that I'm presenting and a lot of other things, then I guess he will respond and we'll see that conversation between me and him happen. But if not, then we won't. And then that will be that, I guess. And I guess I'll complain about it later. I'm not going to not complain either way. Like, even if he does do it, I'm still going to complain, but I'm not going to complain about that. So, but I like the idea of being open and having discussions openly and examining faith, although I'm not sure that's enough. If you take it apart and go, man, this doesn't make this just, wow, maybe faith isn't good then. Maybe you just leave it in pieces. And maybe there is a different way to view the world and view reality rather than a faith. Maybe there's a better methodology. Just have to respond to this comment in chat. We're not talking about Islam. So, no. Anyways, back to the... This is what I say. Like, people in chat sometimes just have their own... Like, he said, this guy, he's having his own talk right now. He's not talking about the video or what I'm saying. He's like, no, well, what about Islam? What about... we don't care about that right now. We're not even talking about that right now. We're discussing this video. If you want to send me a video about Islam, great. I'll review that and I'll tell you why it's wrong. Why don't I want it? I don't care right now. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this video. So, no. I'll talk to you later. I mean, you can email me. My email is deconvertedman1@gmail.com. Email me. We'll set up a thing where we'll talk live on this thing or whatever. But right now I'm doing this video. So no. We're going to do this video. Not what you want to do. But it's just the bizarreness I just had to mention and pontificate upon. And we'll play a little bit more of his video, and then I will conclude, and then I will complain some more about other stuff, maybe. I don't know.
Yes, I'm trying to persuade. But so are the anti-testimony people. And what they want you to do is reject it. They want you to paint yourself into a corner with them and say, this is now where the things are and this is where I stand. And look, if you want to be there, they want to be there. Who am I? What kind of hypocrite would I be to say, you can't not believe? Well, what about me? I didn't believe. And I'd already gone to seminary. I mean, for crying out loud, you got to cut people some slack and acknowledge that there's some ups and downs to this. If you want to not believe, I like you. You can do that. If they want to, I like them. They can do that. But let's be upfront about what a testimony is for. It's to persuade. And I think that the offer to eyes wide open faith and not painting ourselves into some corner, I mean, I think it's a better offer. I think it's a better invitation. And so whether you are someone who would say, I lean toward there's maybe nothing and I don't actually think there's a God behind it, but I like the exercise and I like thinking, or whether you're somebody who was raised like I am and you're like, nope, I'm in, I'm pretty sure, and you're in that phase, either way or anything in between, let's process this stuff together. And to those who are in a place where they've done their processing, they don't want to do any more, and they're ready to plant that flag in the ground and say, I'm done and I'm out, and I want you to come with me. Grace and peace to you as well, my friends. But I am not done and I am not out, and I want to continue down this road some more. And I would love it if you would hang out with me while I do it. I'm Matt. This is the 10-Minute Bible Hour. Let's do this again soon.
And I'm Deconverted Man, and this is a channel that I have. So, what the bleep am I watching now? What's going? Oh, all right. What is this? Some other video. I don't. No, we're done. We're done. Go away, other thing. Go. There we go. Okay. So, did we have any empirical evidence offered? No, we didn't. At no point did he say, hey, look, here is the thing that I am talking about. There it is. Did we have any repeatable tests to offer? Like, if I drop this blue sheep, it's going to go down. Oh, yeah, I can do that many times. Oh, great. Repeatable test. Did we have that? No, we didn't. Was there a valid and sound argument? Nope. There wasn't even an argument given at all. Just essentially an explanation, a story, a testimonial. Okay. Fair enough. But I don't have any reason to believe that any of the things that you said are true other than that you believe them. Yeah, sure, you believe that they're true, but are they true? Is these things that are true, or are these things not true? How do we know? How do we find out? What's the methodology? All those sort of questions, but that's not really what the video is. The video is simply from Christian to atheist to Christian, but I'm saying, really? Atheist? I mean, really? I don't know. But he doesn't believe in this type of God. Okay, great. And he just has to not believe in the other type of God, and then he'll be an actual atheist. But I suppose we're all atheists in one way because we don't believe in certain types of gods, so that's something. Just want you to go one more. Or be a skeptic, then just doubt all the things. Screw it, why believe in anything? Except for, I mean, there's certain things that you have to believe in because you don't have a choice. But those things, those don't count. Look, it makes sense if that's not what the video is about. So look, let me explain. Look, when you read it, you see what you find out is what you read is not the thing that you thought it said. Wait a minute. I think I've done this before. Oh no, it's all happening again. Be sure to subscribe and follow me. I mean, not follow me. Follow the argument. The argument.